Happy Friday! It's time for another 5 Things Friday, and this week I am tackling the controversial topic of 5 reasons you should not, that's right, you should not finish a book. I'm so glad to have you with me for another episode of 5 Things Friday. Have you been following along with my 31 days of cookies and my cozy extravaganza giveaway? If you haven't, be sure to check those videos out. But this week, I want to tackle a very controversial subject. That is 5 reasons you should not finish a book. Do you know that term DNF, did not finish? Well, we're going to tackle that today. So let's get right to it. Number 1, there's no gold star. You're not going to get a gold star at the end of any book. There's no prize. There's no bonus. This isn't a Cracker Jack box. Okay, well, maybe with my books you get some bonus recipes at the end, but still, there's no major award. One of my earliest reading memories is in Miss Heller's first grade class. Hi, Miss Heller, if you're out there watching. We've stayed in contact, which I think is so lovely. But in Miss Heller's first grade class, she created kites with all of our names on them, and they were hung all around her classroom. And anytime we finished a book, you got a little tail on the kite. It wasn't for a prize. It wasn't for a sticker. There was no winner at the end of the year. What it was a visual memory. Every time I would look at the wall and see another tail on my kite, I would know that I had finished a book that I had loved and enjoyed. All of those memories of learning how to read on my own and having my mom read aloud to me formed the adult reader and writer I am today. And whenever I see a kite to this day, I think about reading. But I don't think about it because of a prize. I think about it because that experience really ignited my love for reading. And that's what books should be for you. So do not finish a book because you think you're going to get a gold star at the end. No one's going to give you one, and you don't need one. Number 2. You don't owe it to yourself. I promise you, you do not owe it to yourself. Repeat that with me. Here's why. I think that reading should bring us joy. And I'm not talking about reading light and joyful books. Yes, I write cozy mysteries. And I know this time of year, there's lots of romance and Hallmark books on the table. That's awesome. You should read books that give you an escape. But reading should also be about joy in other ways. When I read a plethora of genres. I read serious subjects and I read light subjects. But reading offers me a chance to escape, to take an adventure to a part of the world I haven't seen, to learn about a new culture, to maybe even shift my worldview or teach me something. All of those things bring me joy in some way. If you are slogging your way through a book that isn't doing that for you, put it down, walk away. It is not worth it. You don't owe it to yourself. Reading should inform you, it should teach you, it should change you, it should bring you an escape, whatever, but it should not be miserable. And if you are having a miserable time with a book, put it down. Number 3, you do not owe it to the author. You don't owe it to me. Really, you don't. And I know that for myself as an author, and I know that as a reader too. Here's a perfect example. I personally do not read anything that involves children in peril or being harmed in any way. And that's for many reasons. One of them is because I spent the early part of my career working with children who were in vulnerable situations, and it really stuck with me, those stories. And also because I'm a mom myself, and I just know that's a line for me that I never want to read. So recently I had a friend give me a book that I started. I got about 20 pages into, and I realized, ooh, I can see where this story is going and it's not for me. That's not to say anything about the author who wrote it. The book was well written, the pacing was nice. I just knew where the story was heading and knew that it was not going to be a match for my personal reading taste. The same thing will happen with me sometimes when I'll start a book and for whatever reason it's not resonating and I'm trying to force myself through it, and then I've just learned to set it aside and walk away. And sometimes I'll return to a book like that later. Maybe it's months, maybe it's years later, and fall in love with that book. So sometimes it's just that a book is not right for us at this particular moment in time. I had that happen this summer. I was reading so much that was set in World War II, which is one of my sweet spots when it comes to historical fiction. I think I had read 7 or 8 titles back to back to back, and the next book that I picked up that was in that era, I couldn't get through it. But I think it was because I had saturated my World War II reading. So I have that aside, and I know I'm going to come back to it later because I had tons of friends who loved that book. So you don't owe it to the author. Don't feel any pressure from an author's point of view to finish a book if it's not resonating with you. Set it aside, and maybe you'll discover it later. Who knows? Number 4. You don't owe it to anyone else. You should not feel pressure from anyone else. You don't owe it to your book club. You don't owe it to your Instagram followers. You don't owe it to your friends to finish a book. If a book isn't a match for you, it's okay. Book clubs should be about community and coming together. And yes, of course, as a writer, I love it when I go to a book club and everyone's reading about the book or maybe they're debating it. But really, you could just go to the book club for the wine and the cheese and the delicious coffee drinks. Or if not, maybe you need a new book club. No, I'm not dissing on book clubs. They are my favorite. But really, I just think it's so important, and it's one of the things that I've learned over time, especially because with my own writing schedule and also how often I get asked to blurb books by other authors, that my own TBR stack is so huge that if I have this pressure, this outside pressure of, oh, I have a book club that I've got to read that book for, or I don't want to let my Instagram followers down, that's not going to be a great reading experience for me. So if you're not loving a book, don't feel outside pressure to finish it. Number 5, last and certainly not least, the number 5 reason you should not finish a book if you're not enjoying it is there are too many books and too little time. It's the holidays, it is reading season, and if you are like me, I have a stack of books this high, probably higher, waiting to be read. If a particular book isn't right for me at this moment in time, I am going to chuck it aside and keep going through that stack. There is always something else out there waiting for you. So if a book isn't bringing you joy, if it's not something that's filling you up, set it aside and try something new. All right, those are my 5 reasons I think it is completely okay not to finish a book. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Are you someone who is like, I don't care. If I start a book, I am getting to the last page, to the end, no matter what? I would love to hear in the comments. And as always, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell to get notified whenever I share new videos. Happy reading or not reading.